Hey folks, Charlie in Westeros here, coming to you all after watching a pretty crazy mid-season 8 episode for Game of Thrones. I realize a lot of people out there are feeling all kinds of mixed emotions, confusion, not sure what it all means as far as many theories go, or what comes next in the show, but I will try to do some clarifying on my end in terms of what the ending of episode 3 for season 8 means in the story of Game of Thrones, before going into some predictions for the upcoming 4th episode of the series in a follow-up video. For now, there is one big question at hand as far as it relates to the death of the Night King. What does it mean? Will we ever discover any possible deeper motives on his part? Does this mean Arya is the true princess that was promised? Or will the prophecy still come to pass in another way? I think these are all thoughts and more that are going through our minds right now, so I'll try tackling the easiest subject first, and that relates to the Night King's story arc. Although the Night King and the White Walkers were always the more dangerous threat in the TV series, they were nevertheless ones that was relegated to the shadows, so to speak, in favor of the interhuman conflict going on in Westeros. But they were the most epic enemies in the story. Cersei is peanuts compared to them. Who cares about her, you might say? Well, I agree. The White Walker plot is one that a lot of people were drawn into. You can find YouTube littered with theory videos relating to the White Walkers and their ultimate objective. Who will defeat them, how they're going to be defeated, and so on. It really just goes to show the impact they have had on us as viewers. However, I think there is one big reason why the White Walker plot seems to have been sort of shafted in Game of Thrones, and I think it's largely related to the planned prequel series in the works, which is intended to focus on the original Long Night. In short, the show intentionally left out information as far as the White Walker's backstory is concerned in order to allow a Game of Thrones spin-off to answer those questions we still have. GOT has constantly put the emphasis on the power struggle for the Iron Throne. From the get-go, the conflict was always about who will claim the Iron Throne between its many claimants. The White Walker threat was something that really only materialized in the latter half of the series, and even then it was only ever truly taken seriously by most of the main characters during the 7th season. Now, don't get me wrong, I certainly think the show could have given us a little bit more, like seeing some humans fight the White Walkers with their Valyrian blades. It would have certainly made the episode just a tad more exciting if we got a little bit more of the taste we experienced in the Hardhome episode a few seasons back. That said, my sincere, if somewhat naive hope is that the prequel series is what's meant to focus in on the struggle between the White Walkers and humanity, as well as witness a greater build-up and storyline behind the motivations of the Night King himself. We see that character purposefully and constantly avoiding fights and surrounds himself either with Whites or other White Walkers. Why is that? Why does he avoid facing off against Jon when he had the chance? Perhaps it was direct combat and an overestimation of his and the White Walkers' brute strength which led to their defeat in the Long Night so long ago. Or perhaps it just isn't necessary for him to engage in direct combat, considering his main objective seems to be the elimination of life itself. In short, any answer to such a question and beyond that is really something that can only be answered from the events that took place during the original Long Night, something we will see in, hopefully, the not-too-distant future. Now, the next question. The prince that was promised. Does this mean Arya Stark is Azor Ahai reborn? Is she the princess that was promised? I don't think the answer is so simple. Considering the series is almost at its end, there are really 3 main ways this question can be answered. The first option is that the prophecy is either unreliable or just simply wrong. For one thing, it should already be noted that the Azor Ahai legend is something that is really only ever mentioned in the books and never overtly discussed in the show. The prophecy is detailed in one of the History and Lore animated shorts that is included in the Blu-ray and DVD release of the seasons, but the original story is otherwise never overtly elaborated on in the show. The prophecy relating to a promised hero, however, is mainly talked about in the show through the framework of the prince that was promised. Considering the prophecy tells of a figure who is, quote, born amid salt and smoke, and who would pull a sword from flames to combat an impending darkness, it is admittedly a little hard to fully associate Arya with that figure, and so perhaps it really isn't a prophecy that is meant to be taken with any seriousness, at least in the TV series. At minimum, this means that the showrunners are choosing to forgo a prophetic ending for the show in favor of the unpredictable. And certainly, Arya successfully stabbing the Night King directly wasn't something many of us anticipated. The second option is that Arya is the prince that was promised, despite the manner in which the prophecy is described. Certainly this case is similar to the first one in that the prophecy clearly isn't entirely accurate, but nevertheless broadly refers to a chosen warrior of light who would be a savior to the world. Broadly speaking, Arya is certainly a hero who saved the world from an impending darkness, though it takes away a literalist interpretation of the prophecy. The third and final option is that the prophecy has not in fact come to pass, and that Jon Snow or Dany, or someone else, is the prince or princess that was promised, and there is still something for them to accomplish. This possibility, however, points to two possible outcomes. Either the White Walkers have not yet truly been defeated, and that their defeat is yet to occur, or the true impending darkness refers to a very different threat than the White Walkers. To us, the threat of Cersei Lannister and Euron Greyjoy does not seem to be as great as that of the Night King, but it is possible the prophecy was in fact referring to a prince or princess who would save the world from an evil tyrant. Now, I do realize that one could counter that point and say that Cersei is in fact meant to be killed by the hands of the Valonqar, that is, a person known as the Little Brother in High Valyrian, part of a prophecy given to Cersei by Maggie the Frog in the books. Many people typically feel like this refers to Jaime or Tyrion Lannister, while others interpret the term as referring to a younger brother in the general sense. So one could argue that this in fact refers to the likes of Jon Snow, who was theoretically a younger half-brother to Rhaegar's children by Elia Martell. In a sense, the prince that was promised and the Valonqar could be two halves of one combined prophecy. That said, there is another possibility many people tend to forget, and that is the fact that the Valonqar part of the prophecy Cersei received from Maggie the Frog is in fact omitted from the show. So in short, there really isn't anything to theoretically prevent the prince that was promised prophecy from coming to pass, assuming that it is referring to a hero, either Jon or Dany, defeating a great darkness that a tyrannical ruler in the form of Cersei Lannister wishes to impose on the land, something we may not fully realize or only learn about in the next episode, for example. Or perhaps the great darkness isn't just a single threat, but a series of threats. The threats that come in the form of Ramsay Bolton, of Euron Greyjoy, of Cersei Lannister, of the Slavers, and of the White Walkers. Or perhaps I'm just reaching. Anyway, the other option, that the White Walkers aren't truly defeated, is of course a possibility, but I do wonder how they'll bring them back and build a plot around them with only 3 episodes left. Still, I don't entirely discount the possibility despite the semblance that they have all been soundly destroyed. Anyway, I will end this video here. I had intended to make this one longer and discuss the aspects of what happens next or predictions for the next episode, but I'll save that for a follow-up video I will try to make ASAP. For now, what do you think? Will the prince that was promised prophecy still come to pass? Has it already occurred in the form of Arya? Or was it all just a plot device meant to lead us astray in our guessing? Let me know in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.